How well do you really know your supply chain? Most companies believe they have full control over their suppliers. Contracts are signed, vendor declarations are collected, and compliance documents are filed. But the real question is, what happens beyond your direct suppliers? Many organizations only monitor their Tier 1 vendors, while the deeper layers of the supply chain remain largely invisible. Hidden within these layers can be serious risks such as child labor, unsafe working conditions, environmental violations, or unethical subcontracting. When these issues surface, the consequences can be severe. Companies may face regulatory investigations, reputational damage, investor pressure, and even termination of international contracts. This is why supply chain due diligence has become a critical part of responsible business operations. Welcome to mindsync Business Solutions. We help organizations navigate complex regulatory requirements and sustainability expectations. Today, businesses are expected not only to comply with laws but also to ensure responsible practices across their entire supply chain. Our team supports companies in developing structured due diligence frameworks, implementing ESG strategies, and strengthening compliance systems. In this video, we will explain how supply chain due diligence works and why it has become essential for companies operating in India and global markets. The reality of modern supply chains. Modern supply chains are highly interconnected and globalized. A single product may involve raw materials from one country, manufacturing in another region, and distribution across international markets. Companies often work with multiple vendors, subcontractors, and logistics providers. While this complexity helps reduce costs and increase efficiency, it also creates visibility challenges. Many companies lose track of what happens beyond their direct suppliers. This lack of transparency can allow risks to develop unnoticed. What is supply chain due diligence? Supply chain due diligence is a structured process used by companies to identify and manage risks across their supply networks. Instead of relying only on supplier declarations, companies actively assess supplier practices. This includes evaluating suppliers, reviewing compliance documentation, conducting audits, and continuously monitoring performance. The objective is to ensure suppliers comply with labor laws, environmental regulations, and ethical business practices. Ultimately, supply chain due diligence helps organizations build transparent and responsible supply chains. Why due diligence matters? Expectations around corporate responsibility have changed dramatically over the past decade. Investors, regulators, and consumers now demand greater transparency about how companies operate. Environmental, social, and governance considerations, commonly known as ESG, have become central to business decision-making. Companies are now expected to understand where their materials come from, how workers are treated, and whether suppliers comply with environmental standards. Major supply chain risks. Supply chains can face multiple types of risks. One of the most serious concerns is child labor or forced labor in supplier facilities. Unsafe working conditions are another major issue, particularly in labor-intensive industries. Environmental violations such as illegal waste disposal or excessive emissions can also occur. Unauthorized subcontracting is another risk where suppliers outsource production to unknown facilities. Without effective due diligence systems, these risks often remain hidden. Business consequences. When supply chain issues become public, the impact on companies can be severe. Reputation damage can occur almost immediately. Regulators may impose fines or initiate investigations. Investors may lose confidence in companies that fail to manage ESG risks. Global buyers may also terminate supplier relationships if responsible sourcing standards are not met. Global regulations. Governments worldwide are introducing laws requiring companies to monitor supply chain risks. These frameworks require companies to identify and address human rights and environmental risks within their supply chains. Indian companies exporting to global markets may also be affected by these regulations. Supply chain due diligence framework. A strong due diligence program follows a structured process. Companies begin by mapping their supply chains to identify all suppliers involved in production. Next, suppliers are assessed based on risk factors such as geography, industry, and operational practices. Supplier evaluations include documentation review and compliance verification. Companies may conduct audits and ongoing monitoring to ensure compliance. When issues are identified, corrective action plans are implemented. Supply chain mapping. Supply chain mapping helps companies understand the full network involved in producing goods. Without visibility across the supply chain, effective risk management becomes extremely difficult. Supplier risk assessment. Risk assessment helps companies identify which suppliers require deeper scrutiny. Suppliers operating in high-risk industries or regions may require additional due diligence. Required supplier certifications. Certifications play an important role in supplier verification. International standards such as ISO certifications demonstrate structured management systems. Social compliance audits such as SEDEX-SMETA and BSCI help evaluate labor practices and ethical sourcing. These certifications help companies verify responsible operations. Supplier compliance documents. Companies must also review key compliance documents from suppliers to confirm that they operate legally and meet regulatory requirements. Import-export compliance. For companies involved in international trade, import-export compliance is another critical aspect of supply chain due diligence. Businesses in India must obtain an import-export code from the Directorate General of Foreign Trade. This code is mandatory for importing or exporting goods. Companies must also comply with customs regulations and international trade restrictions. Product certifications for export. Many products require specific certifications depending on their export destination. These certifications ensure product safety and regulatory compliance in international markets. Trade documentation. International trade involves several critical documents that support customs clearance and shipment verification. Supplier audits. Supplier audits help confirm whether actual practices match the documentation provided. Continuous monitoring. Supply chain due diligence must be a continuous process to manage evolving risks. Technology in due diligence. Digital technologies are helping companies improve supply chain transparency and data management. Benefits of due diligence. Companies that implement strong due diligence frameworks gain both operational and reputational advantages. Implementation challenges. Despite its benefits, implementing supply chain due diligence requires structured systems and expertise. How mindsync can help you. At mindsync Business Solutions, we assist companies in implementing structured supply chain governance systems. Supply chain due diligence is no longer just a compliance exercise. It is a strategic approach to managing risk, protecting brand reputation, and building sustainable business operations. Companies that implement strong due diligence frameworks today will be better positioned to succeed in the global marketplace.